Okay, people. So today I am joined by Dan K to talk about his new film, What We Hide. Dan, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate that.
Oh,
How are
of
you doing?
course. Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's good to be here.
Yeah, no worries, man. Like the film is now dropped, right?
The film has dropped, yes, as of Friday. Correct.
So how is how's that been? Right? What's this journey? What I mean, like it's felt like to you now. It's like reached that finish line, as it were, to some
Yeah,
extent.
it's been a long journey. I've been working on this. Well, let's see. I had the idea for this movie a good few years ago. I was actually, I don't remember if I read an article or was a podcast, but I read or heard something about opioid orphans. And prior to that, I'd been just very interested in addiction, but and stories of addiction, but really more specifically, stories about the collateral damage caused by addiction.
Yeah.
I was really interested in stories about what the addict leaves behind in the wake, in their wake, the family members and the friends, the loved ones, the people that are impacted by the addict's addiction. So many families. I mean, gosh, so many families are touched by this insidious
Mm,
disease, and I felt like there were really just obviously some terrific films and books about addiction, about addicts and recovery, but I didn't think there was that many books or movies or stories out there about just what's left behind in the addict's wake. And so I was interested, very interested in that collateral damage caused by addiction. So when I had heard or read this article, whatever it was that where I heard that term opioid orphans, it just kind of clicked for me that this could be something really worth exploring.
mm.
Because if you think about addiction, um, as like I said, it affects so many families, and certainly since the opioid epidemic back when it started about 2000. Um, you have it would make sense, right? You would have hundreds and thousands of kids who will have lost their parents either to an overdose death, or a parent that is incapacitated and unable to take care of their child. But you just didn't hear much about opioid orphans. And so
No.
hearing that, it just kind of clicked that this is something that I thought would be worth exploring.
Yeah, I have to say, when I read your director's statement, it then just makes you do kind of think, and it's just like I can't think of another story that you know necessarily deals with the children, right? Like I think you've seen that deals with the wife or the husband, but I don't think I've seen anything that deals with the kids, and especially has the kids now with no parents at all, so having to then navigate the world on their own and deal with all the repercussions and everything like that, which is, yeah, it's kind of crazy that we haven't had this. So it just made it even more compelling to see what you've done, you know?
Yeah, well, that was what was so striking as I started to dive into the research, and I did a lot of research to prepare to write and direct this movie. Was that, and again, something that you don't think about, but it makes sense that sure, you have with this epidemic of addiction, you're going to have all these parents who are incapacitated and are unable to take care of their kids. Therefore, you're going to have a system, a foster care system, that's going to be completely overrun and overburdened
Mm,
with kids flooding into the system. And one of the consequences of that, as I learned in doing the research, was that so many of these kids, the brothers and sisters, because the system is so overburdened, they get separated. which can be just, it's trauma upon trauma. And having that happen to you, it's just devastating, and particularly for any family, devastating. But for, in this particular case of our movie, What We Hide, it's an older sister who's 15 years old, who, because of her mother's addiction and cycling in and out of addiction for this girl's whole life, she's had to basically be the mother to her younger sister for as long as she can remember. So when their mother passes away in the beginning of the movie, she's already been the mother to her younger sister, having to take care of her younger sister. So for her, the older sister, the last thing in the world she would let happen is anyone to come and separate her from her sister. So she's going to do everything in her power to prevent that from happening. And again,
Yeah.
it's one of the consequences of this epidemic that I don't think a lot of people think about when they think about addiction.
No, and I think the problem is, you know, the whole foster adoption system is, you know, it's kind of broken as it is.
Right.
So any extra on it, because even without the opioid situation, you were still having people separated. Right. So then just bring a new influx of kids into it. I mean, where are they going? You know what I mean? It's just this impossible situation. So it's horrendous, but no one talks about that aspect of things.
Yeah, and that is just one of the major, and there were a few, but components of this epidemic that I just felt we needed to shine a light on it. And it certainly inspired me as I went about the process of developing the screenplay, something that I just felt very passionate about, that people need to know about this. And that certainly was one of the things that drove me as I was creating it.
Yeah. Now, another thing I was kind of interested in, I mean, there's a lot of things I'm interested in, to be honest, Dan, but it was just like you and Julia going and doing all of these interviews. So was that after you'd heard this, you know, podcast article, whatever it was, which kind of gave you the idea of opioid orphans? Or was it, had you decided to kind of look at this thing with her before that?
No, so you're mentioning Julia. That's Julia Keller. She is she's an author. She writes books right now, but in a previous life, Julia was a journalist, and she actually won a Pulitzer for her work when she was at the Chicago Tribune. And Julia, like I said, she writes books now, but I'd become friendly with her. We were working on another project together, and when I came upon that term opioid orphans, and I felt like there's really something worth exploring here, I called Julia because I knew with her background as a journalist that she might be able to really help me. And I said to her, I said, hey, I'm interested in this topic of opioid orphans, and I would love to, I'd like to turn this into a movie, but in order for me to do it, it has to be as authentic as possible. And can you help me maybe do some research? Can we, with her journalistic background? I should also mention Julia lives in Ohio, and as you may or may not know, the Rust Belt of the United States, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, was hit particularly hard by the opioid epidemic. And I felt that if Julia was game, maybe we could just, she could set up a number of interviews throughout the Rust Belt, and we could just sort of hit the road and talk to folks who've been impacted from all sides by this opioid epidemic. And Julia, as soon as I pitched it to her, she was game, and she set up dozens of interviews for us. And we met with folks, like I said, who have really been impacted from all sides. Like, for example, we did we would do these ride-alongs with sheriffs in some of these towns, and we'd sit in the back seat, and the sheriffs would drive us through their towns, and they would just talk about their experiences dealing with this epidemic and how it's destroyed their communities, and how so many folks are not able to hold jobs down because of their addiction. They're not able to properly take care of their kids, and then of course there's a dire impact on kids because their parents are not around. We One of the more memorable experiences Julie and I had was we did a roundtable discussion with caseworkers whose job it is to deal with kids whose parents are incapacitated or have passed away, trying to help these kids navigate the system. And these caseworkers, they were just very forthcoming in sharing their horrific stories about just being on the front lines of this epidemic. We sat with a family in their home. It was three girls, three sisters, who were being raised by their grandma because their mother had recently overdosed and died, and their father was incarcerated. And these girls and their grandma just shared their stories. They opened their home to us, and at one point, the oldest sibling, the older sister, said that when they discovered their mom had passed away from an overdose, they had this thought that maybe they should try to conceal the fact that mom had died. And the older sister had that thought because it's just tragic to even think about this, but in their communities, this was not uncommon for they had friends that they go to school with whose parents had overdosed and had to be taken out of the home. And they saw that in their friends' circumstances that often the siblings were getting separated. So knowing that, when they discovered their mom had died, this older sister had that thought, gee, I wonder if I could conceal this, and because I don't want anyone to come and separate me and my sisters. And just hearing that heartbreaking story, that was a big spark for what you end up seeing in the film.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. Like it's, it's a terrible situation. But doing all of these interviews, did you prepare yourself for the emotional toll all of that may take on you?
No. At least for me, you kind of you if you're going to, I mean, what I set out to do in with these interviews was basically to gather as many stories as I could to create the most authentic piece that I possibly could. So part of, in order just to focus at the task at hand, if each one of these stories, everything you hear could just devastate you. And then you want to be able to pick up the pieces and write the piece. So, almost in a sense, you have to, at least I did, just almost put a journalist hat on as well, and just really do your very best not to be absolutely gutted by every story, because I don't think you'd pick yourself up off the ground. You'd be curled in a fetal position crying, because some of this stuff is so upsetting. But I took on this task to wanting to create this film, and I felt like my job was to tell a story that dramatizes what is happening, so people out in the world can see this movie and have a better sense of what kids and families are going through as a result of this epidemic. So I tried to do my best not to let any of this, anything that I was hearing, devastate me to a point where I wouldn't really be able to do my job.
Does it change kind of like the dynamic on a set, though? Do you have to put anything in place for, your actors to be able to, deliver these performances and just keep that emotional balance?
Well, the one of the things that we that I did was have very long, in-depth conversations with every actor, really in the movie. Certainly, the lead actors and the key supporting characters, talking about um, just the epidemic of addiction and what this has done to families. I would share my research with our actors and performers, and we would just have discussions about it, so that when it came time to actually shoot the movie, um, everybody was really in the right headspace, and we all sort of unified under this vision of what we were trying to accomplish with the film. Um, and so, like, so no, like we didn't have counselors standing by on set, for example, in case the material became too difficult or anything like that. But we did do a very good job, I think, communicating with each other, and talking about these very real situations that we were dramatizing,
Mm,
because these were, like, I would share with my, depending on whatever the scene was, but I would share with the actors who were in this scene, like, hey, some of what we're dramatizing in this scene came from this experience I had. I met these folks when I was in Kentucky, and I might share that story, so they really could understand the context behind, and intention behind everything that we were doing. But specifically, no, we did not have counselors sort of standing by to help people in the event that someone became overly emotional. But that's, it is part of the job, right? The actors, my job as the director is to execute each scene to the best that we can, and not let our emotions get get the better of us,
mm.
and try to stay focused and stay in character, and do what we can to dramatize this story to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily always play out you know how you want it to, but I think with this you definitely get that emotional impact. I
Yes.
mean, I think we buy the relationship with the sisters, and just all of these situations do feel real, and I think that's really important. I think especially what I really liked was is it Darcy Montgomery?
Dacre Montgomery, yeah.
Acre. Yeah. Ah, Reese is a piece of shit. But that but that's great though, because I think sometimes, right, situations get played off and you don't really buy them. Like the drug dealers, like, okay, you can go, and what I mean,
Right,
they
right, right.
and it's just like they're not doing that. Right, this person is gonna leech off these people for as long as they can. They're parasites, what I mean? So I thought what Reese did, and especially those last scenes, whew, they were tough, but it was good because you bought it, right? You were like, that's exactly what this piece of shit would do.
Yeah, well, again, doing the research, and talking. One of the people, one of the groups of people that we met with and talked with were addicts who were in recovery. And one of the things that some of these folks drove home to me is that when you are in the throes of addiction, like, all reason and logic kind of go out the window,
Mm,
and your behavior is just, can be, just awful, because you're a slave to your vices and to your addiction, and everything else becomes secondary, and everything you do is in service of feeding your addiction. And the character that Dacre Montgomery plays, and for folks, Dacre's just a phenomenally talented actor. A lot of folks know him. He was played the character of Billy in Stranger Things. Dacre was, also did his own research coming into this, and he and I would have discussions, and he had a lot of ideas about what he wanted to bring to the character and how the character should look, and how he should sort of move and how he should talk. It was all very much informed by real life examples, just
Mm.
research that he did on his own, and certainly research that I did that I could then bring to him and talk about. So that threat that he poses to the girls is very real. It's an unfortunate, and again, one of the many unfortunate byproducts of this epidemic is it you have folks like Dacre's character Reese, who really it's about money and the next fix, and they don't really care. They don't really care who they hurt to get what they need.
Mm.
And they, in a sense, of they've lost. Addiction can do so many things, but one of the things it can do, obviously, is take away part of your humanity. And that character that Dacre portrays is certainly struggling in that regard. But the threat he poses is very real. And we were just trying to make all of it, particularly including his character, just feel as authentic as possible.
Yeah. No, I think it definitely comes across. Like, after making your first film, you know what I mean? Like, what were you kind of expecting going forward? Because, this seems like it was a really, I think, intricate and, long task, right? To bring this to bear. So, like, for your second feature, like, did you think this is what you were gonna end up doing?
Well, I this right. This is my second feature. I've been working in this business for about 25 years at this point, and the first thing I ever really did in my career was I wrote and directed a little independent film called Way Off Broadway that I made in New York for very little money with some fantastic actors, and but that was I guess you would call it a dramedy, a coming of age dramedy. So this certainly, what we hide is a much different film,
Mm.
and it's exploring topics that that I certainly was not delving into with my little New York indie. I had always hoped that I would get to make another film. Much of my career since making my first feature has been as a screenwriter. And I've been fortunate to have a career as a screenwriter and make a living doing that. But I had always wanted to get back into the director's chair. It's something that I had been itching to do for a while. And as a screenwriter, there are some ideas that you have, or I shouldn't say you, at least there's some ideas that I have, like this one, that I felt like, this is just very personal story to me. I don't think I would give it up. I don't think I would sell it to a studio or give it to someone else to direct. I just felt like I need if I'm going to make it, if the movie's going to get made, it's going to get made because I make it. So it's just organic. Like, as I started the process of researching it and taking that research trip, like I said, with Julia, and meeting all these folks and hearing all these stories, it just became very personal to me. And it was like, if this movie's gonna get made, it's gonna get made because I direct it. And I just had that attitude. All right, if hopefully I'll get to make this, but I'm not gonna give it up. I'm not gonna give it to somebody else. And as a screenwriter, that doesn't always happen. I mean, you as a writer, you get attached, I think, to everything that you write because you put your heart and soul in it. but there are certain things that just hit you on such a gut level, like this story did, that it was it was just something that I felt like I need to tell this. I need to tell this story. I need to not only write it, but I need to see it through as the director. So that was just really just organic how that happened. Something that just felt very, very personal, and I felt like I need to be the person to tell this particular story that I've written.
Right. Do you think subconsciously that's what you were waiting for? Right? The script that was so undeniable to you that you couldn't pass it to anyone else?
Well, when you when you have a career as a screenwriter, one of the things you have to learn, and I think it's a lesson that I think is challenging for screenwriters, is that you have to give your baby up to somebody else. Somebody else is going to assuming you're not directing the piece.
Yeah.
You have to give your baby up to someone. Someone is going to come in, if your movie, that is, if you're lucky enough to even get your movie made, but someone is going to come in and they're going to interpret what you've written as they see fit. And because that is the director's job. The director's job is to take a piece of material and do their best to make it their own. And what invariably happens is whatever the screenwriter intended, I shouldn't say inevitably, but this I think happens way more often than not. Once the director comes in and they put their stamp on it, and the writer's vision then becomes sort of funneled into a director's vision, there's a lot of things change during that process. So what the screenwriter is often imagining the movie will look like, it doesn't typically look like that once a director comes aboard. And that is the process of filmmaking. That is the way it works. And I know for me as a screenwriter, it took a few years for me to really accept that and reconcile. But that is actually what a director has to do. A director has to come in and make it their own. They're not if they're not just directly translating what you wrote, because they wouldn't be connected to it. For a director, I think, to really connect with material, they really have to get into the script, and they sometimes they'll make changes, and they'll have different ideas than what you as the screenwriter might have had, because they have to make it their own in order to tell the story. So it's a lesson in letting go, I think, for a screenwriter, and I did learn that lesson. I think as any screenwriter does who is lucky enough to get some movies made. But for this particular, for What We Hide, it was, like I said, it was just I wasn't going to let it go. I couldn't really imagine doing all this. The way I connected to the material, I really couldn't imagine someone else coming in and then telling their version of that story. So it was. It just became, like I said, organic, and to me, like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this, or it's just not going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. Now, this being the second feature, right?
Yes.
You're so connected, so you're like, I need to make this film. But was there any concern, because this would be the second feature? So were you kind of concerned about any particular shot, scene, like how you were going to interpret it and bring it to life?
Well, it's a great question. I think the first answer to that is, well, all of it. You're concerned about everything. Everything is giving you nightmares and keeping you up and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do all this? And it is such a monumental task to direct, to take on a film as a director. However, you can't really allow yourself to become crippled. Well, at least I shouldn't say, I can't allow myself to become crippled with anxiety because I'll just be a puddle on the floor, and I won't do a good job directing the film. So
Yeah,
in a
and
sense, it's like, well, it's like you have to, for me, it's, you just have to sort of put that little, oh my gosh, the overwhelmingness of it all, of everything that you have to do to direct a film. You kind of just have to put it in a little box in your head, and lock it away, and not worry about it.
yeah, but I'm
Otherwise,
sure you,
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of that you probably dealt with doing the first feature, right? Because there's a load of people that talk about making films and never make a film
Right.
because of, those hurdles to do the first one. So you've done all of that, you've made that first feature, but yeah, going on to the second, right? What is that? Right? What are those? Because you can make a film because you have done a film, right?
Hmm.
But it's like, are there other kind of, things that run through the mind about taking on this next challenge and the degree of that challenge? Because, it's such a different kind of story that we're doing here.
Yeah. Well, the look, yeah, there are again, there are so many challenges for and every project. I mean, like, this is only my second film. You and I could have maybe a conversation in 10 years. Hopefully we'll be talking about my fifth or sixth film. But I can tell you, even though I've only done two, that each film that you do is going to present a whole new, unique set of challenges that you just aren't prepared for, or you haven't necessarily gone through an experience like this, because these challenges are new.
Mm,
Even if you have some directing experience under your belt. This, for just for example, so when I made my first film, like I said, that movie Way Off Broadway, that was a film about young 20 somethings living in New York. So it's a coming of age story about people out of college trying to find their way in New York City. So at the time, I was that person. I was in my early 20s making that film, telling a story that I knew very well, because I was experiencing everything that the characters in the film were experiencing.
mm,
This obviously is different. I'm not a 15-year-old girl with a 10-year-old sister, who's trying to avoid having her community find out that their mother is overdosed and died from drugs. So the it is a complete, it's like apples and oranges compared to what I was doing with my first feature. But one of the, you were talking about challenges right off the bat, I would say, knowing what I set out to accomplish, and knowing that I needed, in order for this movie to work, I needed these two sisters, the 15-year-old and the 10-year-old, to feel as well, not obviously not just feel like sisters, but also to put these girls through the emotional ringer, and the trauma that these characters go through in this piece. That was the biggest challenge on the surface, was finding, would I be able to find two actors at these vulnerable ages to pull this off,
mm.
because of all the challenges, of everything that we were going to be dealing with in making this movie. To me, the girls were going to make or break it. If we found the right girls to play these two parts, I felt in my gut the movie would work. And if there was any misstep, if we miscast, if we didn't find the absolutely right two girls, then the movie probably wouldn't. So I did go into it really. I went into the pre-production process, I should say, knowing that was the key. I have to make sure that these girls that we cast are Spider and Jesse, that they have the inherent talent and abilities to bring these characters to life, and make this story feel as real and as authentic as possible. So of the many challenges we had on the film, that was the one that was top of mind as I was really gearing up to go make the movie.
Yes, it does definitely ride on, Spider and yes, to be able to, connect you to this story. Like, so what was that casting like? How quickly did you find your leads?
Well, we got, it feels like we got lucky because it's hard to imagine. So Spider is played by McKenna Grace, and Jesse is played by Jojo Regina. And honestly can't imagine anyone else inhabiting these characters. So when I say we kind of got lucky, I don't know what the movie would have looked like if we didn't get McKenna and Jojo. Specifically, for Spider, who anchors the movie, the older sister, McKenna Grace was at the top of our list. She's just a phenomenal talent, and to be honest, I didn't think we really were going to get her because she works all the time. And sure enough, when we started casting, our casting director called McKenna's reps, and they said, "Oh yeah, no, sorry, she's not available. She'll be shooting a movie during the dates that you guys are making the movie." And then we moved on, and we got actually very deep into casting. We were doing callbacks for about 5 or 6 potential Spiders. Some very talented young actresses had come in, and I was working with them in callbacks. And I think they all would have been very good. But at the 11th hour, when it was time to basically pull the trigger, we got a phone call that this movie that McKenna was supposed to be doing, I think, had fallen through, and she was now available. And I met with her. We had this wonderful, long, about 3-4 hour chat, and that was it. She was available. I just sitting with her, I could tell. I mean, I knew her work. She's so terrific. But I just inherently knew that she was going to just be absolutely sensational for us. And so we cast her. And of course, she was sensational for us. And with the character of Jessie, in a sense, that was even going to be the harder one, just because of her age. Jessie is 10 years old. She turns 11 in the movie, and she's riding an emotional roller coaster throughout the film. And is there going to be a young lady out there who has the chops to pull, to hit all these notes and to pull it off? And I didn't know. I believed in my gut that yes, there'll be someone out there. There'll be a young girl out there that we'll find who will be able to do this. But I didn't. It's a leap of faith. You take the leap of faith. I saw hundreds and hundreds of kids who were put on tape, auditioning for the character. And when Jojo she was one of these hundreds that I was just tapes I was looking through. And when we got to Jojo's tape, within about 30 seconds of her audition, you could just sort of tell that this young girl was very, very special. And we had and this is all remote, by the way. A lot of this was during COVID too, or towards the tail end of COVID. So things were happening remote anyway, and often auditions still are happening remote. But we did a callback with Jojo and just confirmed everything that I felt just from her audition tape, that she would be perfect, and we cast her right after her callback, and we were in a sense off to the races. And so I just have to thank my lucky stars that we got these 2 girls, and we created this environment on before we started shooting, but when they got to location, for them just to hang out and be sisters. I think they went to an aquarium, they did a boat ride. I just wanted them to hang out and sort of get to know each other. But the 2 of them, they bonded so quickly that there's the sisterly bond we were hoping to create On film, it just came very it just came very natural.
Yeah.
And they had Jojo and McKenna have great affection for each other, and what we were able to capture on screen, I think, reflected how they genuinely felt about each other.
Nice. Now, when you're casting Jesse, do you wait until you've casted Spider, or are you doing it concurrently?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because certainly going into casting, my intention was to cast Spider first, and then cast Jesse. In other words, like have Spider, and then narrow down our lists, or maybe our Jesse choices. Let's say 3 or 4 or 5 actresses, young actresses, and have them do some chemistry reads with whoever we had cast as Spider. That was the initial intention, but it didn't work out that way. We ended up casting Jesse first. Only just because the way the process was unfolding.
Yeah.
Jojo, like I said, through her audition tape and then the callback, she was just so, there was just no doubt in my mind that she was Jesse. And so we cast her while we were still in the process of casting Spider. And because, and then shortly thereafter, McKenna became available, and I met with her, like I said, and we cast her. There never was any chemistry read. There never was getting the girls in a room together just to hang out and see what that felt like. All these plans that I had in how I was going to go about casting just went out the window. But again, it was intuitive. Like you could see how perfect Jojo was for this character, and obviously meeting McKenna, I knew instinctually, oh, she's just perfect. It just kind of the process it unfolded, I suppose, the way that it should have. And in your plans, often with filmmaking, in all aspects of filmmaking, your plans go out the window. But we were again, it did work out. But a lot of it, I think, as a director, is you have to just trust your gut. And like I said, that's why we ended up casting Jesse first, because I didn't want to lose Jojo. She was perfect. And then we cast McKenna, and they just hit it off, like I said.
Interesting. Yeah, there's definitely something I was wondering about, you know what I mean? Because as I said, you do buy the relationship. So it's just, yeah, you always wonder what that process is like, you know what I mean?
So absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what for you, like, did you maybe envision would be the toughest thing to shoot? And in the end, was it the toughest thing to shoot, or was it something else?
Man, that's a good question too. There were so the movie, we initially had, I think, 21 days to make the movie, but we had such horrific weather. We shot in Florida we shot in and outside of the Tampa Bay area in September, which anyone who's from that area can attest is the heart of lightning and rain season. So we had many shutdowns for lightning where we couldn't shoot, where there were massive rainstorms, and then also we had a hurricane barrel through, Hurricane Ian, and so we had to shut down for about a week. So we had many production challenges, which then created, to your question, we had many scenes that we were just kind of rushing to just get, because we fell so far behind in production that it became sort of our mantra that, all right, we just have to get the scene. So so many scenes I'd have, every scene I had carefully shot listed with the cinematographer. Exactly, we knew exactly what we wanted to do. But because we were playing catch up so much, we were just constantly like, okay, what we would get through a certain number of scenes during a shoot day, and hope that we had time left over to grab some of the scenes we had lost due to the weather. So that sort of became the biggest, rather than one specific scene.
Yeah.
It was getting all these scenes that were on prior day schedules that we never shot, just getting those scenes shot sort of at the end of a shoot day, so we could do our best to catch up, which was a near impossible task because we lost so much time with the horrible weather that we hit.
Yeah, that feels stressful, man.
It was stressful, but also, look, we're to even get a little more specific with you, because we're dealing with kids, anything that involves stunts becomes particularly challenging. And so if there was one scene just on its surface that was the most challenging, it's this climactic scene.
Yes,
where
I was thinking. Yeah.
where Reese comes to the house, and there's I don't want to say too much about the scene. I don't want to give too much away, but Reese comes to the house and there is it
comes to
I don't know how to say a violent conflict, but there's some physical some physical activity that you need stunt performers for, and you also need your kids for the close-ups, and it was a challenge to shoot. So that was certainly one. That climactic scene was one scene I could say from the beginning we knew was going to be particularly difficult.
Whew, yeah, I can only imagine. Because when it's with kids, right? Are you looking for kind of stunt performers who are very short? Like, or is it more about the camera angle to make it work? Like,
So yeah, it's really both. I mean, you do need the stunt performer to look, at least physically, so that even the camera angle can obscure things, so that you're not necessarily aware that it's a stunt performer. But yes, no, you do want the stunt performer to look, at least in body type, as close to the actual performer. I will say though, this particular scene I'm talking about, we had stunt performers on set for this scene, but both Mckenna and Jojo really wanted to do they wanted to do it all to the point. I think at the end of the day we ended up doing very little with the stunt performers because the girls really wanted to be in it and do it. So I remember we had to obviously you have to make safety is the priority. So we had to prioritize that. But we had a stunt coordinator. Once we were able to make sure that everything was safe, we were able to use, just use the stunt performers in a very limited capacity. We thought initially going into that day we would have many more shots with the stunt performers, but as we got into it and the girls really wanted to keep working on doing the scene, we were able to use them for most of it. Believe it or not, yeah.
Right. Does insurance sometimes play into those things as well? Like, of how much you can let an actor do?
Well, insurance plays into, in a sense, everything, because safety is paramount. You have to make sure that the environment is completely safe. And so you work, we worked with a stunt coordinator whose job it is to make sure that everything we're doing is completely safe. So I don't think that insurance. I mean, insurance, yeah, it plays into everything, because even if a scene is, even if there's no stunt in a scene, it's just always you have to make sure that your performers are safe. But I don't know that I can't say that insurance particularly is on your mind when you're doing it. It's you're working with your collaborators, in this case a very well-trained stunt coordinator, and once we know that the conditions are safe, then we can shoot with the stunt performer or with the actor if the actor is able to do it. So not so much.
Okay. Right. No, I was just wondering if there's like anything written into the contract, kind of, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
the actor can only do these type of things and boom, boom, this kind of, you know what I
That
mean?
yeah, that would be just a case by case thing. Some actors will have certain things listed in their contract. Others will not, and it's that's just a case by case.
Right, right. Oh man, it definitely sounds like yeah, there's a lot went down. Yeah, yeah, on, on
it
this shoot.
it was a very very difficult shoot. Like the weather being the most challenging because we would have when you have when you're shooting a film, particularly if you're outdoors, and we did have a lot of scenes outdoors. If there is lightning even in the vicinity, you
Yeah,
have to shut down.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we would have plenty of times where you look up and it's, you know, I don't want to say it's clear blue sky, but there's no, you don't any have it doesn't look like lightning, but we would all have these apps on our phones that would tell you when there's a lightning strike within, I think it was a 7 mile bubble. So
Mm.
you could get lightning strikes just on the bubble 7 miles away, and you have to stop.
Oh,
So we all became very very well uh, uh, we all we all became experts in this. I forget what the name of the app was, but in checking this app and making sure the lightning strikes were outside the bubble, and sometimes it would come right inside the bubble, and you could have no lightning where you are, you could have no rain, but you could not shoot because you can't risk a lightning strike uh, hurting or, you know, injuring anyone on your cast or crew. So it was, we had some very frustrating days where we just were not able to shoot for much of the day.
I can imagine. But I guess now all of you have got potential second careers as meteorologists. You know what I mean?
I, if I will be happy if I never have to look at that app again, because that app gave me absolute nightmares, because you can't imagine, you spend all this time, you get to wherever the location is for the day. Your cinematographer and their crew are lighting the scene for you. Everything's getting set. You bring the actors to set. You're about to start shooting, and then all of a sudden, the AD says, "Guys, we just got a lightning strike 6.5 miles away. We now have to shut down for, I think every time you got a lightning strike, you had to shut down for 30 minutes and wait to
Right.
see if, and so that could happen again." And that did. You'd have at like minute 28, all right, looks like we're on the clear, we'll get ready to shoot, and then up, lightning strike, and now you got to wait another half. It was traumatic. So no, I don't want to be a meteorologist, and I don't want to ever look at that app again. It's quite traumatic.
Oh man. Because of all of that, like what was the rationale for Tampa? Is it like tax rebates or, you know what I mean, funding? Like why choose that as a locale?
Uh, Great question, considering what I'm telling you with all the trouble we had, right? Well, you know, we were able to take advantage of some incentives that Hillsborough County and Pinellas County have for films.
Right.
And those incentives they're a big deal for a small independent
Oh, for
film like
sure.
ours, because you end up saving a ton of money if you can take advantage of those incentives. So we got these great incentives through Hillsborough and Pinellas County, where we were shooting the film, and that was kind of that kind of put it over the top for us, because we were looking at some other locations as well. But you know, you need to stretch that dollar as far as you can when you're
Mm.
making really any movie, but certainly an independent movie where your budget is what it is. It's small, and we ended we that is why we chose that Tampa area, and we just got unlucky with the timing. Initially, when we chose to shoot there, we thought we were going to shoot a little earlier in the summer before the lightning season really hit, but just the
Yeah.
way actors' schedules worked out, we ended up just right in the middle of it. And like I said, we had Hurricane Ian shut us down for about a week as well. So this movie had its challenges. I feel like it's a miracle that we made it, but we somehow came through on the other side. And fortunately, people really seem to be enjoying the film, and we've been very touched by the responses so far. And we're glad the movie's out there. It does feel like a miracle, though, I will say.
Oh man. But I think the big thing is, right? You've now had so many different kind of experiences that going into the next joint, you know what I mean? Like there's going to be even more comfortability knowing, well, I've dealt with this, I've dealt with that, I can deal with this, you know, I can pivot in all of these kind of scenarios and situations. So I'm sure that must bring another level of comfortability to the process in a way.
Yeah, there's no question. I feel like you go through, as anyone will tell you who makes and look, we had all these issues. I feel every movie has issues.
Mm.
I don't know if they're extreme, if they're all as extreme as ours with hurricanes and but yes, I mean movies are very, very hard to make. And I think just getting through it and surviving it does breed resiliency, and it shows you what you are capable of. And I think it certainly fortifies you in your belief that okay, I've been through it, I can do it, I know I can do it again, and we'll fight like heck to do it again. Um, and not be, and not shrink at any potential what might seem like overwhelming challenges, knowing that I survived the What We Hide shoot. I know I can, whatever the next one is. I know I can survive anything.
Yeah.
So yes, like coming out of any really difficult experience and then coming through it and having something to show for it. That you can also be really proud of, and that people seem to be responding to. It is so rewarding. It does make you think, you know what? I'll go through hurricanes again to do it. I want to do another one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sure people are thrilled to hear that because I had to wait 25 years. Well, no, 24 years. What I mean, for
Yeah.
this one. So do you think you will be getting behind the camera sooner this time, or are we gonna have to wait
I I
another?
I I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Like I was telling you earlier with What We Hide, there's a couple scripts that I have written and or am working on that I also feel such a connection to, that I want to tell those stories. So I'm certainly going to do everything in my power to keep going, and to make more films, and to hope not to have such a gap between the second and third as I did between the first and the second. That is certainly, fingers crossed, that is my hope.
Okay. Well, I'm sure everyone is very happy to hear that. Are you able to maybe tease the potential genres that we might be playing with?
Well, I'll tell you, the writer director side of me is very much interested in dealing with social justice films that like What We Hide, shining a light on a societal ill that I don't think is being really noticed, or something that's being underserved in our country, that a particular problem or an issue that I think does need to be addressed. So it's like What We Hide, the couple of projects that I have now that I'm very excited to hopefully direct, that I've written already, or I'm working on. They are projects that I think are very relevant to certain things that are happening in our society today, without getting too specific.
Okay.
That I think are important to shine a light on through dramatization, because I do think that there's a real power. I believe in the power of storytelling. I believe in the power of movies to change hearts and minds, or to at the very least expose people to things that are going on in our society that they might not be thinking about or are aware of, and that is what I hope to do with my with the writer directing work that I continue to do.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter, right?
Yes,
When people leave the theater, turn the TV off, it's like, you know, you're turning to, if you're with someone, yo, so what do you think about, what would you do in that situation? How would you, and it starts that conversation, you know what I mean? Like you
that's
might
right.
tell friends. So it's definitely the beginning of things. So
Yes,
yeah, keep it
that's
coming.
right.
Keep
Yeah,
it coming, man.
yeah. I will. Thank you.
Awesome.
I will
Like
try
how,
anyway.
yeah, man, definitely, definitely. How can people keep track of everything that you're doing?
Well, right now, the best thing they can do is to watch our film, What We Hide, which is available on VOD. So anywhere you go to buy or rent movies, if it's Apple, Amazon, Fandango, YouTube, wherever you go to buy or rent movies, please check out our film, What We Hide. I'm at my Instagram is Dan K Movies, so you can certainly follow me there.
Right.
And like I said, I hope to be able to announce in the near future what the next project is going to be. But yeah, please, I encourage everyone out there to check out our film, What We Hide.
Okay, tremendous. People, all the links will be on the website. So make sure that you know what I mean? If it's Apple, Amazon, wherever, but go watch the film, follow Dan on socials. So yeah, you know what I mean? You'll know when the next joint is going to be dropping. And you know, you might be able to help him with lightning predictions and all of that. So when people go for go follow. Oh, before I let you go, quickly,
Yeah.
just a one quick little thing. The smell. I gotta ask you about the smell, right? Because
Yeah.
did you think about that?
Yes. So
And
I think to cue the audience, and I think what you're referring to is like we're saying, the movie opens with the sisters discovering that their mom is overdosed on the couch, and they decide to try to conceal the fact that she's passed away, so that they continue to just go about their lives and not be separated. So what the girls do is they put mom in the shed. They put her in a trunk in the shed, and they close the trunk, and that's how they dispose of her.
mm,
So I believe that's what you're referring to, right? What the
yeah,
smell from the shed, right?
yeah.
So the shed is, it's not attached to the house. It's behind the house, so it's not something they would have to think about in the actual house. But there are scenes where the girls do have to go back, and I won't spoil it, but scenes where the girls do have to go back into the shed for various reasons. And so what our initial thinking was, yeah, the smell it'll probably attract some flies, and you'd have to have the girls sort of react to the smell. But what we ended up determining, or I should say, in thinking it through, what I ended up determining sort of at the very end was to sort of scrap the whole fly idea, because what I was thinking was, yeah, the girls will be swatting at flies and they'll be holding their nose, and I just felt like, you know what, that's going to distract from these important scenes, which I won't spoil, that take place in the shed. And so I made the decision not to have them draw attention to
Okay.
that, because I did not want the audience to be distracted by the smell, when I really wanted them to focus on what was happening in these few scenes in the shed.
Yeah.
So it was something that, yes, something I had a whole plan for, but then, like many things in filmmaking, scrapped it at the 11th hour.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. But I just was like, I need to ask you about that. But yeah, no, Dan, this has been tremendous. I thank
Kevin,
you
thank
for your
you.
time, man. Thank you for yeah, like look, these things could go on for forever, but I know you've got a busy day, so I'm gonna let you go. But people, as we said, the film is now out. So go to your favorite VOD, check out What We Hide, and then go follow Dan on socials so you can keep track of everything that he is doing. And after watching this, I think, you know, you agree with me that you want to see what he does next. So, Dan, thank you so much for stopping by. And I hope once you're ready to talk next project that you'll come by for another conversation.
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation. This was fun. Thank you.
Tremendous. Thank you, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. And
Take care.
congratulations, man. Congratulations.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right. Take care.